Salutations, friends. My name is Abaddon Kilbride, and I am so incredibly monumentally pleased to be with you and this fine group of panelists for a real earnest discussion as part of Girls Run These World's Black History Month festivities. This is just the start of the fun, so make sure you come back on the 19th at this exact same time for Black Creators and TTRPGs with moderator Classic Sam, and again on February 26th, a Wednesday, this exact same time, for a roundtable of Black moderators and producers moderated by Alex of Fatty Bards. For all you Roll for Luck fans, I'm sorry you've got to miss them this month, but think about all the dope Black people that you're going to get to meet and spend time with in the meantime. So that's pretty dope. Anyway, that's enough of me. Let's get to your panelists. I'm going to go in the order that I can see everyone on the overlay. So Ava, would you please introduce yourself and tell them where to find you?
Hello, my darlings and dears. It's your Madam Ava here. You can find me anywhere at Madam Ava Couture, except for Threads. I refuse to do Threads. And I'm covered in glitter and happy to be here. Happy Black History Month, y'all.
Heading over to Bree.
Hi, I'm Bree. I use she, they pronouns. I am happy to be here. What are we doing? What? I do this. You could find me on this right now, the thing that you're watching right now. You could also find me on most platforms as either Brenna Nikki or Bren Nikki. If you can't find me on those things, I don't know. Good luck. Anyways, that's it. That's what I have for you.
Insha?
How do I follow up? What do I do? I'm Insha. You can find me at that was hilarious. I'm sorry, that was monumental. I love that. Oh my god. Anyway, sorry. I'm Insha. You can find me at Instagram with 2 eyes on Instagram. You can find me at Night of the Living Fits on Letterboxd, inshafitzpatrick.com. I'm an author and I'm really excited to be here. This is awesome. Thank you.
Taylor.
Hey, I'm Taylor, aka Swing Taylor. I'm a Black variety content creator. I post the things, I do the things, I say the things, and all the jazz. Also, a council member for Girls Run These Worlds, and I do those things too. You can also see me Friday and all the jazz. Next person.
Ren.
Hi, I'm Ren. You can find me at Mask Ren on some socials. I do some cosplay, mainly do TTRPGs now, floating around the TTRPG space in a variety of places. But right now I'm here with all of you. Hello. You're muted.
DK.
No! I told you. I told the producer before we started. I knew it was going to happen on stream. I got this. I got it under control. All right. What are we doing today? Here's what we're doing today. I am very excited because we have a very diverse group of Black performers in this space here with us today to have, I think, a very important conversation and what I expect to be a very earnest conversation. So before we even jump in, I would just like to thank all of our panelists for participating and being willing to share their experiences in this community, because that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about Black experiences in actual play. I'm going to be kind of loosey-goosey with this and sort of just toss a question up in the air and see who volleyball spikes it. So my first question for all of you is, overall, what has your experience in tabletop RPGs, both offline and online, been like as a Black participant specifically?
Silence, so I'll go. So I'm be 100% honest with you. I, on purpose, mostly only participate in TTRPG spaces that have Black people in it. And the reason for that is because yes, I have been in TTRPG spaces that had, white people and other people of color. But in general, those experience has always been a mixed bag. In the sense of sometimes not feeling like heard or seen in the way that I would want to. Now, ever since changing life up a little bit, it's great. So great TM asterisks. I only role play with Black people, and I don't only role play with Black people, but I mostly role play with Black people.
I have the best experience with all Black tables or BIPOC tables heavily more. It's like I have a rule that I like to be a table that where it is at least 50% to 75% of BIPOC members as much as I can in the space. I think a lot of times some places try to use me as a token, I feel. And sometimes like I'm their go-to Black person. If they find someone else, like they could reach out to others and give others an opportunity to have that space at the table. And now I'll be in 20 actual plays with them in 1 month. And I'm over here like, ooh, I'm the only Black person that you're using. There's other BIPOC, but why are you feel uncomfortable to message another Black creator out there in the spaces? There's a lot of us. There's a lot of us right here in this call. That it's like, so, but why am I the go-to? And I always go back to the question that said, well, just hard. That's not hard. It's not hard. You DM me. Why can't you DM others?
Yeah, that's kind of a similar energy that I have. I try my best to be a majority BIPOC or at the very least BIPOC femme spaces as much as I can. Um, Depending on the person, I'm like, I sometimes give a little bit of leeway, but 2024 was a very weird year in that regard. But when it comes to finding tables, especially with newer groups that haven't gotten to know me yet, the reoccurring thing I always make sure to tell them is like, hey, I enjoy my experience with you. I don't like being the only Black person or the only brown person there. So next time you want to reach out, try to match the energy a bit more. And usually, a lot of times, those groups, they understand, they take those notes, and they work a little bit harder. They make sure to tell me if they're able to fill in those spaces or ask for suggestions of who to invite. But overall, my time has been cool. Seen weird things, but my experience have been cool.
I guess with my experiences, I'm still like a baby actual player, so like I'm still finding my way through a lot of different tables, and I will say, and this is being just completely honest, with some of the white tables that I've ever played in, I've immediately in my head it just clicks on. I'm just like, I need to find more BIPOC and femme tables. Like I need more queer tables. I need more tables that are accessible to everybody and not accessible to just one particular group of people, person, and storytelling and character wise. Because there are a lot of us, and even like kind of like going through the channels of wanting to play, I'm like, everybody is shouting out loud and it's only like one particular type of skin color, and that's bonkers to me. But other than that, it has been really good, but it's like my wish list has been now more queer tables, more BIPOC tables, more femme tables, more tables where there's just a lot more diversity and a lot more of like beautiful, beautiful skin that we all have because I don't see it much.
I will say for my part, I don't play as much offline anymore, kind of for that reason. Just because a lot of the people that tend to dominate the offline spaces that you can find um, tend to be more white parties and things like that. Online, I find it a bit more easy to like curate the spaces that I'm going into. So uh, if I get invited places, most of the time it's people that I already know are trying to make some kind of effort to be more inclusive, which is why I know them in the first place. Otherwise, uh, I think I think it's just that I just don't venture into spaces that are gonna make me uncomfortable in that kind of way, and so I haven't had as much trouble in online actual play spaces.
Okay, so it sounds like overwhelmingly the experience has been, 75, what, like C, B, or better, generally speaking, but it creeps into A territory when you are able to be at tables where you can see faces that look like yours and hear experiences that are a little more akin to what you are familiar with and maybe aren't dominated by the sort of countenance that we are used to seeing front and center in streaming and in performing. Sound fair?
Very fair.
Okay. Well, I guess that actually does lead me into my next question. What makes you, and we sort of answered it a little bit here, but what makes you feel comfortable and safe to embark on or join a new tabletop RPG project? Are there specific things that you look for other than like in terms of structure or what's being played? Or yeah, how do you gauge that?
Uh, in all honesty, vetting. Like
Mhm.
vetting behind the scenes. And I say that because like prior to like doing things like this, I was only in like one or two games and I stayed like that for like 2 years. Um and it was kind of through the connections, often through other black people who've been like, "Oh yeah, these people are cool, these people are cool." You know what I mean? And more than one that I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'm willing to give it a try." Because at least at like my big age at this point, I don't like putting myself in scenarios willingly where might be uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Like I don't like taking that risk because like at the end of the day, this is supposed to be fun. This is supposed to be enjoyable. And if I get off work and I hop on your actual play and I'm over here like I'm the only black person here and nobody gets my black jokes and nobody gets my black character. I'm like, "You know what? It's time to sign out. I got to go because I could be playing Sunhaven. I could be on my Switch. I could like I could be taking a nap. I could be petting my cat. I could be doing a lot of other stuff. You know what I mean?"
And then if they try to understand your black joke, then I'll be side and I'll be like, "Why are you laughing? It's not for you."
Exactly. Why you
It's not
laughing?
for you.
It's not for you.
And I
It's
just
like
end
that.
up upset. Either way.
It's like I would get mad. In the end.
Because I'm
No,
like,
I
"You're
feel like
laughing a little too hard."
it's like
Mhm.
massive side eye.
Usually,
Yeah, go.
usually I know I have trouble with a lot of vetting. I've been getting better at it. When it comes to games that I join, it's usually with people I've already been in other games with, and they come from people who already knew me before. It's like, hey, this is Ava. This is usually her vibe. I think she would fit with you. We talk. The vibe seem okay. I'm seem pretty good, and we move on from there. But last year, there were more groups that were asking for, hey, we would love to have new people as players. Sign up to be players. That's when I started vetting a bit more. When it comes to the group, I vet. When it comes to the person, not so much, because my social media is tailored to be like, I hear whispers of everything. So if I don't hear a whisper of you, it's probably going to be okay. And if I hear something later, well, I find out later. It's all it is what it is.
Transparency is a big thing for me. When people, like, if they do reach out messaging to me, I want straightforward what the game is, who's the players. I will love direct social links. When people just give me the ads and stuff, I'll be like, where does ad go? We have all these social medias. And then I usually give myself 24 hours before responding, so I can sit down. If it's a group channel, if they have a website, I like to look at previous projects to see if they have worked with BIPOC members. Look at the video to see how they treat those BIPOC members in the story. Are they talking? Are they engaging? Are they being well invited? It was like that first couple of minutes of the video can change the whole vibe of the whole story, to see if I will be safe. Because if they didn't do it with them, how are they going to treat me differently? So it's what those are like the biggest thing: vetting and just doing the proper research, and also knowing that you do not have to say yes immediately. And like, unless they gave you a deadline, then use up that deadline to the last minute. I feel like, until you feel comfortable to give a correct answer.
That's one thing that I started learning. It's kind of just like doing, I would love all of the information up front. That's like the one thing that really either makes me really excited to be in a game, and then also if I get invited to the table, giving all of that information about like who's going to be in it, vetting all of that process, like all of that is super important, because like I get really excited like seeing like faces that look like mine, or like faces that I actually know, and I'm just like, oh, hey, I played in a game with you, like this is so much fun. But getting all of that information up front is probably the thing that makes, I know, me feel the most safe and me feel the most comfortable, because then I'm not going in like completely and super blind to anything.
I'm very much a lurker in that regard, and so if I get information out who you are, I will very quietly stalk socials just for like a little bit, just to see how you are in the public eye, see what you have, and then if it's fine, it's fine, and we go from there. Um, so very similar to what Brie and Ava was saying, just background. If there are things that I haven't heard, then it's fine. And if I hear things later, then it's less fine. But, we're human and we can only do so much.
Mhm. I do be siding sometimes with the whole like, if they introduce me to a table, but they only list the black folks at the table, but don't say anyone else is at the table, that's a red flag.
I've never had that happen
Oh my
before.
God.
Whoa, is that just me? Whoa, whoa,
Taylor,
am I a
Facts.
victim right now?
No, it's happening every day.
Am I a victim right now? Because this happened to me like at least 3 times a month.
You are
the
a
past
victim.
for 3, not for 3. It happens to me at least 3 times a month for a year, gang.
Taylor, that's not good.
What?
Don't say yes to everyone.
Right.
I would like
You
to say
are a
everyone.
victim.
I would like to say yes to everyone that I never said yes to any of those tables. I said that does that. I would like to state that for the record, but it's just so crazy that nobody else has experienced this. What is going
No.
on?
I usually just get everyone straight up. It's like, hey, I'm tagging you. I'm trying to get these other people. If any of these people are not in it, like decide not to do it, then I'll let you know. But here's what I'm looking at right now. I never got to just, oh no.
Yeah, because sometimes I feel
Just
like
the black
I'd be getting
people.
tricked to be like, whoa, like, oh, okay, cool, all black table time. And then I get added to the group chat. I'm like, wait, why is there 3 other players that's not black? And like,
Also-
what? That's not what you list to me.
going off of that, another thing that I will add that is a red flag that I look for when applications say that we prioritize like Black and BIPOC and like women folk, and then in the final table, knowing when you know that several Black people have applied, it's white, 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 not white, but not Black, hetero, 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 hetero.
No, I
Like,
The math ain't mathin'.
I'm like, I don't know, y'all.
I don't know. Like every time somebody said in my casting call, had nobody applied that's BIPOC, I was like, maybe it's time to reevaluate yourself and see why.
Mhm.
Not saying to put like all Black people on your front page of your website or anything like that, but like reevaluate what's going on, gang.
Mhm.
Muted.
Muted.
Oh.
You are muted.
It's still muted, DK. We're riffing.
Woo, woo,
I think
woo,
since you
woo,
came
woo,
back, maybe your mic didn't reconnect.
Yeah.
woo, woo,
Yeah.
woo.
Should we go back to our Super Bowl discussion before?
We can
So-
talk about this. We
so
can talk about the
imagine.
bowl that is super.
It turns
Wait, I
green,
can see
gang.
your little thing flicking.
Yeah, is it working?
Yes,
Yeah,
now
it's
it is.
working.
Yes.
Yes.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Video Ninja. Sort of piggybacking off of the discussion of both being comfortable and being safe, but also what you look for in your experience at a table. In our community and across the diaspora in general, it's very well known that Blackness is not monolithic. It is not all one thing for every person. And yet we are often treated as such. Has monolithic thinking affected your tabletop experience, either for better or for worse?
It's kind of the thing of, do I have to try and represent Black people right now? Like, the kind of character I'm gonna play, like, is this going to have some kind of negative stereotypic effect? Do I need to try and break some kind of stereotype actively as I'm playing? All of these, like, above thoughts as you're trying to, like, just be in a moment and be in a character sometimes, and you don't need to think that, but the thoughts come anyway. And so sometimes it affects the kind of character I might end up playing in an actual play to begin with, just because it's like I might need to make choices here that don't portray Black people a certain kind of way, especially if there's not another one that can balance me out.
Yeah. I never had like a negative experience per se, but it usually what tends to happen is if it's me and another Black person at the table, even if I don't know them, I may have seen them once or twice, but like not knowing them, there will always life finds a way to gravitate the characters of ours to each other because it's just like, ooh, what's that white person doing? Did you see that? You saw that, right? Ooh, oh Lord, no. Or just random one-offs. Like I was in a vampire game once and my character was kidnapped and the other like the other Malkavian that my character was, the other Malkavian was like, I want to save her because she's Black, a Malkavian, and she was very polite. Of course I'm gonna save her, which leads to very fun shenanigans. So never anything bad, but I am always wary that it could end up being bad.
So for me, it could be it's a double-edged sword. The good part is because here's the thing, like going off of what Ren said, um typically with my characters, and like they're always going to be queer and or non-binary, femme, whatever, because I am. Most of the time they're going to be thick or fat because I am. And they're always going to be Black, even if they are not Black. Like they are blue, they are green, they are Black. Um And because that's just how I like to play my characters. Like those are the parts of me that I like to include in them. And they're always going to have like cultural blackness in them some way, shape, or form. But in like at its face, cultural blackness does have like negative stigmas, like certain connotations that people assume from you. And when you, like Ren said, when you are the only black person there, it's almost like it feels limiting, like you can't do that. And then it's like, well, no, I should be able to do that actually. You know what I mean? Like I should be able to make my, like happy, fake, loud black character and it just be my character and I can portray them in the way that I want to portray them because it's unique to my experience and also unique to the fantasy world that we are in. You know what I mean? But unfortunately that is just not the case all the time. But I also say sometimes fuck it. Because I think it's a mixture of like uh, it's complicated, but like in the same way that it can be limiting, I also think that it could be a form of liberation where it's like, no, I'm the only black person here. I'm going to be my character the way I want to be my character. And if you guys don't fall in line, I'm sorry, it sucks to suck. You know what I mean? I'm not doing anything wrong. Like if you find something like offensive or oppressive by like just being authentically like me within my character / my character who is like not we're not violating safety tools, we're not doing anything like crazy, they are just like black. Then that is like a red flag and like something that I'm like, okay, I need to side eye you specifically in the future. um the other part of it is that I feel like sometimes being black as a monolith can be harmful to us, like in the sense where I think automatically, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like at least for me, automatically I tend to find a form of safety within other black people. And I have been in spaces, unfortunately, with people who shall not be named, where that has ended up biting me in the tuchus. Where you are like, "Oh, okay, we are in this black space." And like and where even sometimes you might like disregard like certain whispers because like the whispers were in relation to a situation that like could be seen as like racism, you know what I mean? And then you are in that space with this person that you feel like you trust and then it's like, "Oh no, it's you actually." Like it was you all along. Like, yes, racism still exists and that was you know what I mean? That's true, but it's also you. They just didn't know the correct way to like express themselves and it came off as racism, but it's you.
Taking off that Scooby-Doo mask, like, no,
Exactly.
no.
I'm like, well,
Exposed.
Like, how dare you make me believe, like, agree with the racist person in this moment? You did this to me.
Yes.
now I look like Boo Boo the Fool because
Yeah.
I rooted for you. We all rooted for you.
We all ready for you.
How dare you?
Now I gotta go double back and now I have to also be the in between to be like, no, y'all, what this person did was in fact racism or discrimination, but also this person is bad, but can we like separate the two? And it's kind of like, no, they're bad, we can say whatever we want. And I'm like, no. That's not,
No.
I would like it if you didn't.
Small request. Let's not.
I do just want to say that Brie did me a favor and guested on my channel as a bee woman, and everybody knew she was black. Everybody knew that bee was black. Minute she stepped out the gate, everybody knew, and everybody was enchanted, just over the moon about the character. And it was technically a villain who did some real bad shit, and everyone, audience, players, fell in love with her. So
I
you
miss
can do
her.
it too, folks.
I miss that. I miss that woman.
We'll bring her back. You can do it too, folks. You can just
Fantastic.
be unhinged at a table.
Love
I miss
it.
her too. Haven't met her, but already I miss.
Okay.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think like a big experience I had more recently with this, with like character creations and stuff, was a very intense. I requested for a very intense session 0 safety check because we was gonna do. If anybody's familiar with BTM, Vampire the Masquerade, if anybody's it knows sabbats are very intense, it's very dark. So I requested one because I can't play a white character. I just don't do that. I don't play white characters. It's not. I want to represent me being black. I want blackness and stuff like that. BIPOC at least. And then they would that the GM mentioned that there probably is like tortures in the game and all this stuff. So I just made like small requests about like, can we just not do whipping and all that stuff? Like I feel like that's simple. And then all of a sudden, I'm pulled out of the project, and now the cast is all white.
Was the
First, a
whipping
small.
that important to them?
I guess so. I guess it was too much. They was afraid of doing something wrong to my character in a dark campaign game before we even had a safety talk. Because there's solutions, and I was willing to give the solutions. But it's just, but no, you don't want to do the work that shows a lot. And that's like, we haven't even got started. This is just a chemistry check right now. And I'm like, it takes a lot to express feelings. And I was like, I thought this was a comfortable thing. And you decide to expose yourself, rip the mask off, back to that. Like, back to that.
Also, like, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, please keep going.
No, I was going to say, and it's like, okay, it's rooted in fear. We all experience fear. We know what that's like not wanting to hurt somebody, etc. But realistically, what it looks like is that you really want to whip black people. Like that's what it comes across as.
It looks like you want to torture.
And when people come to me to vet you, that's what I'm going to do.
That's the first thing spewing out of the mouth.
I'm going to explain the situation so that they have the full context and they can make their own decisions. But then I'm gonna be like, but in my personal opinion,
in my humble opinion,
if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck,
they're racist. They're racist. Like, period. But I was like, that's like the biggest experience I had with that, and I was like, I was just distraught for that. They just like, we want a different route because I asked a lot of intense questions, but I feel like it's appropriate question. I'm like, I'm protecting you guys, like protecting y'all reputation that something bad could happen, and it's pre-recorded. We can edit stuff out. We can make mistakes, and we can discuss and like fix it and move on. But not giving the opportunity to listen or even try with that was kind of crazy. And I was like, and then now I was like, I got to think about that even more. Got to think about that with when people does older games, like games in the 1950s and all that stuff, and like very realistic. Like we have to have those deep conversations about like, if I bring a black character in, how historically accurate are we about to be right now? It's like, so there's just like those are the intensities I've been doing lately with session zeros and stuff with that, and character creations, and trying to bring a black character, but it's hard to bring black characters in certain settings if they don't allow you to be safe there.
When you have encountered culture clash, let's call it, or other sorts of anti-blackness in tabletops, whether it be at the session zero level or once you've gotten to the table, what has been your approach to handling it, and to both handling it and protecting your peace?
I think for me is, if I see an issue, I feel like it could be an issue, I'm just bullying the DM or the storyteller first. And it's like, hey, my character's going to be black. I did not intentionally set out to have a lot of black cultural themes for this, but now out of spite, I think I may. You're going to be cool with it. If you have questions, come to me, and let's just make sure to collaborate. Like I have a character in like a home, like private home game, and I am the only black person at the table, but it is online friends I've known for years, and my storyteller is a white man. and I bully him constantly. I love you. Shout out to Keith. But I made a character who had specific cultural leanings when it comes to spirituality in a setting where religion is seen as very, 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 very bad. And I went to him and said, "Hey, I get that in the setting of the game, all these religions are known as cults and going to be seen as bad by the general populace. I just want to make sure that you know not to color this in a specific way. This is how it's going to be portrayed. I get that it's going to look like it's being demonized, but because all the religions are being demonized. But I want to make sure that you know not to cross these boundaries." And he's like, "Okay, I can do that. And if I misstep, just let me know." And so far, it's been smooth sailing. I kill his vampires and his wizards every single day when I can, and everything is good and gravy. But I think it's just kind of forcing people to know my character is going to be black at the end of the day. So it's either you work with me, or I'm going to make your life a living nightmare. That's really it at the end of the day.
Um, from the socially awkward perspective, I know, shocker. I'm socially awkward. Um, I when those scenarios come up, um, I I am a recovering people pleaser. So I think it's fair to say that it is not easy to come to somebody and express that, hey, I want us to take like care when this comes up, or hey, what happened in this session wasn't cool, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, especially when it deals with like a important part of your identity. Um, so I'm going to say this bluntly, but also like I understand it's not that easy, but like going to the person and being as direct as possible, uh, and then being mindful of the reaction. Even if the reaction is uh like understanding, for example, right? Keeping an eye on like if these things keep reoccurring. Like I always say, like, make a note of it, put it in your back pocket. You know what I mean? Um, and there have been times where I have brought up something that was uncomfortable, and I kind of get this reaction like, "Oh, okay, they, didn't mean it in that way." Right? I'm gonna put that in my back pocket. And some people would be like, "Well, why would you?" Because it's like, they're just trying to like make it clear to you that like they didn't mean it in that way, like that they didn't mean to hurt you, they didn't mean to cause harm or whatever. And it's like I'm putting it in my back pocket because when you start getting like super like something to keep an eye out on, at least from my perspective, I don't want to speak for all black people, we're not monolith, is that like defensiveness, um like pushing back, that's something we experience in like every day, right? Like if we try to bring up, hey, this thing in real life, this thing like was hurtful, this thing was hard to deal with, et cetera, et cetera, this thing like was like, anti-black stuff like that. um there's always like nobody wants to be told that like nobody wants to be told that they're racist, and nobody wants to like think that they have done racism to another person. But if we're being 100% honest, like racism is at the root of our society. You know what I mean? Like it's going to happen. And people are like, if you are racist, you are bad. And like, yes, don't be racist. But also, that doesn't mean that you are immune to racism, and that like you are a bad person if you make a mistake, but it's how you handle that mistake. And people of color, but specifically black people, are like essentially trained since being a little tot, little baby, to monitor how you handle that mistake that you made. So there is no space where if you are feeling uncomfortable, that they think of it this way. You are special. Like, you are the shit, actually. They're lucky you are here. Like, you know what I mean? They got another Black person to feel safe to come to this table. All right. If they fuck it up, they fuck it up. Right. And them doing something that's hurtful to you, that is anti-Black, that is race, like whatever the situation may be, even for people of color, if you go to them and the red flags are red flagging, girl, you why you wasting your time on these bums? Like, I don't want no scrubs. Like, scrubs. I couldn't.
Go on, finish the song.
From me.
Trying to holler at me. Ooh, Lord have mercy.
Hallelujah. On that.
But yeah, they're scrubs and you should just leave. Long story short, that's my final, like, just leave. You're like, oh, actually, this sucks. God, bye. Like, have yourself a little cry, because of course it feels bad, it feels shitty. But then be like, I'm actually better, so I'm good.
Mm-hmm. Self-affirmation.
Self-affirmation is important. Be delusional. I'm better than you, actually. So goodbye.
And that's on what period?
Kind of like going off of what like Bree said, I've had a couple of like experiences, especially like with home games, where it always just kind of feels like either I have to bring my blackity blackness to the table, or I have to bring just like, or they're uncomfortable with my blackity blackness, which I'm like, you had me here for what reason then? But I always try to deal with like, and especially like inside of just the comments and the little things and all of those little things, like as Bree said, like the red flags keep piling up, they keep waving, they keep just like, it becomes a Jenga piece at the end of the day. And like every time you like pull one, it's just like, please stop, please stop. And then you have to tell, like, I always end up telling the GM, or I'll go to the player and just be like, hey, that's not cool. But then it becomes, and I know that, I don't know if like anybody else experiences this, but I know a lot of Black people have, but I, again, do not speak for all Black people, but it's that like, they make you feel so guilty about bringing something up. And it's just like I'm not anti-Black. What do you mean? I respect your culture. What are you talking about? Like, you can't, it's not, it's not fair that you're calling me out like this. And it's just kind of just like, you think about what, like, I'm not trying to put you in a corner or be your kindergarten school teacher, but you have to think about the comment that you made, what is like, what this feeling that I have, because I'm telling you about it and I don't want to keep it to myself. And especially if it makes me feel uncomfortable at your table. Think about that and rest on it. Percolate in it, stew in it a little bit, hot tub around it, and then we'll talk about it later. But it's that kind of stuff that I'm always trying to just protect my peace with it, and I am a current people pleaser, so I have to just get up and walk away. I will tell you about it, but I need to get up and walk away, or I will crash out so heavily and hard that you will never see yourself in my eyes again.
I am very much intrinsically a non-confrontational person. And so I have turned that walking away into disappearing. And so if if I communicate something to you and it's not passing through, you just will never see me again. And then it'll be like 6 months later and be like, I haven't heard from you. I'm like, yeah, you haven't. You
Of
haven't.
course.
Literally, that one meme just be like, bye.
Yeah, but
Exactly.
I was
Exactly. Because it's like, again, the people pleasing thing, very much, I have so much anxiety. It's so high. It rests at the bottom of my throat every day. And so I don't have the energy to deliver more than what I can give. And if it's not enough, I turn around and leave.
period. I At tables, I shouldn't need to code switch at a TTRPG table. So I feel you shouldn't need to code switch. And that's what I feel a lot of times. If I feel like it's a heavily white table or white passing table, I feel like they expect me to code switch easily. And I can't be my authentic self to bring my authentic characters here at that table. I shouldn't need to feel that way. And if I do feel that way, I am a very confronting person. I will be telling straight up. It's like, yo, I felt uncomfortable. It may take a couple of days because I want to like process I talk to my homies and say, hey, am I overreacting right now? If not, then I write down my feelings, reevaluate my novel, just type, make it even more shorter, and then trying to have that space and conversation. But again, if it goes back to y'all said with the whole like, I'm not racist comment, then I was like, then you're not mature enough for this conversation. I'm trying to help you out. I could easily be all these people and subtweet you really easily on threads and Twitter and stuff. We can make it public real quick, but I'm trying to give y'all the respect right now. Cause like right now it's like if I feel this way, like you treat me unfairly, and I feel like it's my duty to warn other Black people. It's like don't work with them because I don't want you to go through the same steps as I did. And so I'm trying to like give you the space to like reevaluate, fix, and if I see you don't have that, I'm spreading your name. I've got to protect my community as much as I can. I can't keep it to myself.
To sort of put a button on that and also maybe help some of our non-Black friends out there in the audience who may run into these issues and feel that sort of hurt response, that sort of, oh no, but not me, I voted for Obama twice. Listen.
Not to get out reference.
I love Michael Jackson.
I'm happy Beyonce.
I'm a bee.
Listen, you can love Black things all you want, but Black people know when you do not love them. And it becomes a question of impact versus intent. And that is, I think, really what we're discussing here is obviously the impact of someone doing racism upon you is bad. But if they then double down with, well, I didn't mean it, so you're overreacting, your people are just going to peace out into the bushes on you. So I would encourage those members of our listening and watching audience right now, when you are running into those situations, it's okay to feel that hurt. It is not the responsibility of the person who is bringing the issue to you. Okay? Do we understand each other? Righteous.
We listening.
And y'all are just leading me question into question into question. Because my next question, and we're going to take this as slow as we need to.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
From your experience, is there any difference in the ways that non-Black members of the tabletop community engage with Blackness when in game versus when out of game? That is to say, in personal spaces, online, text, what have you.
Language. Why are you speaking AAVE to me when you are white? It's like in game and out of game. We can relate on other topics than me being Black and you're trying to make me feel fit in. But that's heavily when the people speak AAV to me and try to do slang and be like, what's up, girl? And I'm like, no. What's up? No. You really ate with that. It's like, don't break your neck. Please, Amber, don't. It's like doing that just to connect. I was like, we can just talk about anything. The game. We can talk about the game that we're in at the table. And it's just like that, those interactions, it's just like you just don't see me as a human being right now. It's like given that you never met a Black person right now, and it's like really shows hardcore, or starting a conversation, like we go back to the whole like, oh, I voted for Obama and all that stuff, saying like, oh, I watched Medea 20 times, stuff like that. Like, why? Like, you just told on yourself. You
You ain't got to talk about my Tinder matches like that.
He's like, never trust them. They say that like they've seen Medea 20 times.
Jesus.
But it's just, I don't understand why they're code switching now. It's like, again, no code switching at the table. We don't need that. We're all human beings. We're playing a fun game. We decided to collab with everyone. But why do you need to change your whole personality just to interact with me? It's fake.
So I'm so two things.
I'm sorry.
First one, no, that's perfect. I love that. The first one, I have to say this one before I forget. I don't know if anybody else has experienced this, but there has been on occasions where like out of game, like everything's cool, we're chill, everything's cool, right? Great. In game, especially when the topic of romance comes up, there is no reason for you to be coming up to my Black NB femme character with the like, hey baby girl, like
What's up, chocolate? What's up, mom?
Not the food.
Yo.
What up, cocoa bean? With my milk
like,
My
chocolate,
Nubian princess.
my
Mahogany.
Nubian princess goddess.
in game,
In real life,
like in real life, but like you were just like, hey Bree, how's your day? How you doing? Oh, that's really cool. Oh, that sucks. Da, da, da. Okay, so we're in the forest. This hot brown skin elf comes up to you and it's like, hey dark chocolate.
hey big mama. Let me
Yo, listen, let me whisper in your ear. Like
it's like, why chocolate? Why cocoa bean?
Chet Hanks, is that you?
My character is not the gingerbread man, I would like to say.
I plugged my headphones 1 second. Okay, we back. The second thing that I wanted to talk about, which is I feel more like regular, is like I feel like something that I like, which is a contrast to what I just said and what Taylor said, where it's almost like when we are in game, they don't want to engage in Blackness at all, right? Like, I understand that in this fantasy world, we do not have the connotations that have led Black people to be who we are today. However, to just like act almost like it's not, it doesn't like we don't exist. Like, why are every single one of your NPCs white? And it's like, oh, we don't need the representation because this is a fantasy world. Da da da. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is a fantasy world, but we are still alive and real people like today now. You know what I mean? Like, why is every single character that is like an NPC that can be romance like a skinny, conventionally attractive white person? Like, hetero. Like, what are we like? So basically, in those experiences where it's not just like, oh, I'm having a great time, there's nothing wrong here, I've noticed that it's either like that, the first thing that I said, or it's like, oh, because it's a fantasy world, we will not engage with Blackness at all, or you being Black. Like, nothing about you being Black will be acknowledged. Which, like, okay, of the two, the later is preferred, right? But there is a way that you can like give space for Black characters to be Black, and also like give them community and things like that, while also not being like, hey, dark chocolate, hey, sugar mama. Like, you know what I mean? Like, hey,
Yeah, my Nubian goddess.
My
hey,
Nubian
Nubian
princess.
goddess. Like without you having to be like, okay, well, there are a gaggle of like black people, like black elves together. Like, you know what I mean? There is a balance. And I know the balance may seem hard, but just like there's a balance.
Or the black characters get like Disney and be like an animal or something.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Like we can tell, like, oh, that's you trying to make that character black, but that's a bear. But that's a whole bear. I do have a quick questions about if I'm allowed to ask. Like how do you feel like I know like there'd be like a lot of white NPCs and stuff like that. How do you feel when people like don't describe the NPCs at all? Like the GM just said, like, I'm not gonna describe the character skin tone or anything like that. Like we use our imagination, we figure out how y'all feel in those situations.
I don't like that because I want you to tell me how pretty this person is, and I need to how I need to know how pretty they are. You need to give me very great detail of what this person looks like. You can't leave it to my imagination because what if you imagine that they're ugly as fuck? Now that's a disservice to me.
Yeah,
What
like
if they are
NPCs
like
can be
McConnell type of
ugly.
white man? I don't want that. Yes, I support sugar babying, but I don't want Mitch McConnell. You can't do me that disservice.
It's like, what if
He
you was
keeps
thinking
on
Bernie
falling
Sanders in your head
downstairs
and I'm
and he
thinking about
won't-
somebody else?
Listen, right, because the person you think is hot and the person I think is hot could be two totally different hots, and I don't want them to be interchangeable. I'm sorry, I don't. Right? Because if you like, I just don't. I just don't want them to. So describe them to me, and like honestly, if on your secret little paper that you don't show to anybody, you have to make a little list of like, how many like the colors in the crayon box that you have utilized for your NPCs. Do that. You can do it. You don't have to show anybody. You don't have to tell anybody. Don't brag about it. Don't mention it because we are gonna roast you if you say that's what you did. Just don't
Yes.
tell nobody. You don't have to tell us.
flashcards.
Like you don't.
Period.
Like I'm so serious. You don't have to tell us. You will get away with it scot free, and no one has to know.
Period.
I promise you.
And even if you do not audibly describe them, pit crews exist, doll makers exist. Give me
people
that
exist.
later.
Black people exist.
Give me that so I can see a description. I can understand sometimes people are not best with words when coming to describe people. Whatever. Give me an artist rendition. You can look up art references. You can look up model references or doll makers. All those are things.
Google's
you can
free.
have so many ways. Google is free.
It's Google.
Not
It's
as
free,
reliable with the
everyone.
AI these days,
Yeah.
but
Not-
it's still
for
free.
Just
I
don't
need-
promote it. You can show it to
Listen.
us privately.
Also, another thing. You can literally look me in the eyes and be like, it is Channing Tatum and Idris Elba had a baby. And my brain will come up with the rest.
Yes, we will
That's
figure it out.
enough.
Like, specific references are so cool. I'm sorry to say that. Like, it's just like if you're like even writing a book, sometimes like in my experiences, even writing graphic novels, I will literally go, think this person, this famous person, but make them into your own image. Like that's it. Like, and then I will give descriptions, I will give clothing, I will give everything because it's like if we're all creating a world together and you're my GM and you're supposed to be doing like not like the heavy lifting, but like the specific lifting of just creating these characters. I just beg of you, just give me think Idris Elba. Thank you. Great. That's all in my head now. I can go on with this bear.
Just think about
Thank
Aaron
you.
Pierre. That's Mufasa. That's all you got to think about.
Exactly. Like if you tell me like, oh, this voice is as smooth as like what is it? Like Grace Jones. It's like I'm good. I'm done. You got me. You got me good.
One of my favorite descriptions that I've ever done was for Roll for Luck, and it was describing my character's dad. It's like it's Winston Duke, but as like a storm cloud.
Don't bring him up.
Because Ryu caught me off guard. It's like, Winston Duke, but Cloud Man.
That's so funny. But that it's just like there's just been a trend lately with what I've been seeing with probably like non-black BIPOC like GMs. They don't want to describe the NPCs anymore. They would just say basic built woman, brunette hair, take care of the rest. Your brain.
Now that you said it that way, that has happened. Because I was like, I don't think I've ever experienced that.
No,
now that
no
you
one-
said it, I was like,
no one says no one says a body
Yeah.
type anymore, and no one says a skin tone anymore, a skin type anymore. And it's just like, what's going on? You can Google brown shades. Like you can say ebony. Like you can Google, like, you can say ebony, tan.
I also feel black people exist. Just go Google a black person and then describe them. I don't
Like-
I genuinely do not understand the disconnect there of like, well, I don't know what words to use. How would you describe Idris Elba to somebody other than the fact that he's perfect? What would you give me? You know, you're making it much harder than it needs to be in a lot of these cases of like, I don't want to just say facts. Just
Listen, Googling hot XYZ person has saved me so many times. It's so easy. Like,
You can also look up black movie or TV show scripts and read those descriptions out in those scripts of how they describe. But again, if they use food, that's not correct. That's not correct.
That's what I was gonna say.
That's not
Stay
correct.
away
Make sure
from the food.
make sure it's a black writer. Got it.
I also weirdly find that like the non-descriptions usually happen, and I think this is going back a little bit, but they usually happen when you're playing a fantasy game, because it's always like, I do not want to describe any of these people because the black people don't exist, Latina people don't exist, no one exists but white people in fantasy. White people in fantasy is the only people that it will ever exist ever. And it's like, what are we doing in this society anymore? Like, how do you describe fantasy to what I'm describing fantasy to what I'm looking at with fantasy? Like, we're creating a world together. Hello. Just mind boggles me.
I think we've got time for probably one more question based on the question that it is that I have sort of loaded in the chamber. And I think it ties a little bit, I think it ties into everything that we've been talking about so far. Do you feel that the widely accepted safety tools necessary to adequately prepare a table, whether they be lines and veils, whether you have a traffic light, whatever you use, whatever is sort of known to be in the toolkit, do you feel that they adequately prepare a table to engage with representations of Blackness, especially those that don't necessarily agree with modern day sort of imperialist colonialism, which is to say, for example, characters that practice hoodoo or other sort of spiritual cultural traditions, characters who speak AAVE in a fantasy setting, or characters whose cultures have in some way been halted or suppressed by another exponentially more imperial nation?
No, I don't think lines and veils and stuff will prepare you for that, because in tables and stuff I help run and stuff, if I help run safety coordination stuff, if I know someone's backstory is involving anything like religion or disabilities, or like you're thinking about playing a character now, your skin tone, I bring a consultant in that represents that comes in, does a talk to everyone in session 0 about how to interact with the character, how to use certain language and words to process the character and stuff, creates a document to make sure that everyone can understand and process that. I started doing that because I was at a start playing games table, and there was somebody was playing a character that was in a wheelchair, and they brought a consultant in that is a TTRPG performer who's in a wheelchair, and they explain everything about, hey, like, don't describe you grabbing someone's wheelchair and stuff. That's a part of them, that's their body. Don't do that. And me, Never would have thought of that. I probably would have made that mistake and had my characters like, we got to get out of this high tension situation, and probably would have grabbed their wheelchair and gone. And that is evading a space, even though it's a fantasy world. But it was nice to have that consultation, that having that person to guide us as an outside third party, explaining to it. So now I made it a pledge to myself that every a safety person, I would like to know people's backstories as much as ahead of time if they are doing something outside of the norm, to get the proper representation for that. And I have been hired for tables before to talk about how to be Black at a table, how to interact with stuff when it's someone that's not Black, wanting to play a Black character and stuff at a table, and talk to them about it. And most of the time, they probably change their mind afterwards, because there's like a lot of stuff that they don't want to do, they don't feel like they can represent it, right? Which is fine. That's usually what I'm there to just help out with, to be like, what parts are you uncomfortable with, or maybe you just decide we just got to scrap it and you got to do something that you are more comfortable with. But that's how I'm there, to help them go to those extra layers.
Ava, you look like you want to speak. I was
like, everybody's like, I was like, dang, I didn't mean to make everybody quiet.
Oh no, that was good. I truly had nothing else to
You
say.
spoke.
I
That's
was
all.
like,
Yeah, you
my
spoke.
bad, homies.
No, that was
I was just sitting here, like, and I'm done. I don't know what else to say, gang.
Mic drop.
It was a wonderful time. Thank you guys for Girls Run These Worlds.
I think I guess the only other thing I could really say is, like, I feel like safety tools, they are good jumping off points. With a lot of them, they'll mention, like, how okay are you with, like, racism, or like weird real world religions and stuff like that. I for me, racism, point blank period, just no, I don't want that. But when it comes to like real world religions, I'm willing to talk about it a bit more. I know that I myself lean a little bit more spiritual, but I don't really practice anything in particular. But I'm willing to talk it over and see where it comes from, because I enjoy spirituality and blackness. I use tarot cards, which is a type of spirituality as well in my game. So, like, I'm willing to talk about those and discuss those over. So, I think they are good building blocks. Could they be a bit more specific at times to help navigate those? Yes. But if you are at a good table, you're able to navigate those on your own during a session 0.
Kind of going off of that, I agree with Ava where it's like it's a good starting point. But in my experience, when we get into the nitty gritty, like it always has to be like a further discussion, which is fine. You should be having those discussions. We should like those discussions need to be had. But then it's like uh it's almost like, especially how do I say this? Fantasy worlds are like can have their own culture, different races, different uh almost like people and different discriminations within that world. And something that at least I prefer in my games, where it's like I don't want racism, homophobia, transphobia, fatphobia. I don't want that stuff. But I'm always open to like class discrimination. You know what I mean? Because I think that that's something that can be fun, that could be explored. Like it's like, oh, money is a resource that people are struggling to have. Let's talk about that. Let's overthrow the government. I don't know. And
Period.
but something that happens on occasion, which is like sometimes you could catch it in session 0, but sometimes you can't, is that if let's say the table has agreed on that, like okay, yeah, class discrimination is okay. Like there ends up being little sprinkles, like the lines end up blurring, where it's like we are having a class discrimination, but all of the people of a particular class or of a particular race, like a dragonborn or something like that, right? And then they treat the like all of these people as lesser than, but they're majority dragonborn, or the majority like goblins and orcs and like these maybe like I'm talking in regards to D&D, like especially when you're utilizing like because in the same way that like our races and our like existence has like cultural significance, like because like there are games and books like D&D and D and stuff like that that historically have cultural like negative connotations. Like literally the races in game have negative connotations within itself. Like that was one of my biggest issues with Baldur's Gate, that like there weren't goblins that were just chill. Like, you know what I mean? Like um there weren't orcs that were just chill. You know what I mean? So when you start mixing those things, that can then be a muddy line, and then you kind of have to like pull them like get pulled into another session zero, and then like discussing further like, okay, hey, like when you are having some sort of conflict, because like one, you should be able to create conflict that isn't about racism, homophobia, or any other like discrimination. You should be able to, right? But in doing so, because of the world we live in, like if you just allow your brain to brain, there's a real possibility that those things are going to come in there. You have to actively like be aware of that at all times. You know what I mean? You have to actively be like, dang, there are like two dragonborns part of this lower class that I mentioned. Let's add a human. Like, let's add somebody else, somebody that we've maybe seen in the higher class already before. You know what I mean? Those are things that you have to think about. And it's like, that's something you have to be cognizant of, especially if like let's say your characters are like, I want to go to this random place in the middle of nowhere to view these people. You know what I mean? When you are surprised, you still have to be aware of those things, and session zeros just don't prepare you for that. You know what I mean? Like unless you are playing with people who have experienced that thing before and actively want to try to prevent it from happening again. Like even sometimes when you're playing with other like people of color or black people or queer people, like it doesn't happen. It doesn't get brought up. Somebody has to like actively bring it up. So long story short, the answer to the question, no. Asterisks.
Yeah, asterisk. I was also like wondering why like racism is still on consent form, but a lot of times the people it's just like already said that it's already a red line for here. Then why don't you put it on the form? Because it makes it feel like there is an option that somebody can greenlit. Like, yeah, I want racism in this game. And like I did like I like that some people had just already said like playing out like we're not gonna have it in the game and stuff like that. But I get nervous when it's on a consent form that it could be an option. I'd be like, whoa, we definitely need to talk about if everyone at this table greenlit it and I said no, but also be like kind of like siding like why would y'all so willingly be ready for some racism in this game really quickly. And I know everybody's like the big argument between what's fantasy racism and explaining and stuff like that. If anybody try to think to put racism in the game, I hopefully like on the consent form, you just plain out said right then and there, what do you mean about that? And other if they don't have that, then don't put on the consent form. It just says always a red line and just go on the day. That just makes me nervous about why is it like that, or like I'm open to hear anyone else's thoughts on that. But like that was always like a concern to me. It's like why is it still there? Just get rid of it.
One of my DMs for one of my home games, what she'll do is she'll send us like the lines and veils immediately when I open it up, and I always get really nervous when I see them too, because I always get like, if somebody puts racism on this form, I'm gonna crash out. I'm going to lose my mind. Racism is slavery. I'm just always like I want you to look me in the eye and give me a reason. Like that's my entire thing. Like if you want to put that on there, good for you, but look me in my face and give me a reason of why you want this in this game. Like look at me. But what my DM does, my GM does is literally just go racism, sexual assault, sexual violence, and slavery off the table. None of this is going to happen in this world. You will never have to worry about it, especially like if I'm at the table, because I told her up front, I'm not doing slavery, I'm not doing racism, I'm not doing sexual assault, sexual violence, I'm not doing this. And she's just like, that's fine. I don't want to do it either. And I'm just like, oh, you are a good one. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Just take it off the sheet. Like we already know. Just put it in the little list, the master list that is blacked out. But don't put it in our check form that we will hit it. Cause I was like, then just knowing like it's an option. Why? Or it just makes it seem like you just grabbed a template and you didn't digest what was on this template. You just did a template just to save face.
I feel like the only reason it might be on it, and this is just I'm just trying to think. The only reason it might be on it is if like there's a particular kind of story that you're trying to tell. And so like if you want to tell about something overcoming, if like you're playing like a war type story, then maybe you have to like elaborate on the limitations that are going to be going on in this game. Like it's not going to be reflective of real world racism, but in this case, in this scenario, this will happen because of XYZ in the history of the world. But again, it's like you're making the world. So you have choices that you can make, but that's the only reason I can think of why you might want to include certain things, just to make it clear like it's not about what happened in the real world, but and then just make it clear to everyone.
And
Yeah, I
that's
think it
when
just
that like upfront thing needs to happen too.
Yeah.
Like,
it needs to be under, like if you put racism as like a thing and like we can check mark and say yes, no, maybe so. I think it just needs to be a paragraph under it about what could pop up. If you put it on your consent thing, why would it pop up in your storyline? I think that will just be more transparent. Don't make me wait until session 0 while my heart's racing and be like racism's greenlit for some reason in here and we're playing Hello Kitty Island Adventure. Why is it racism? Like the game is about Hello Kitty. Why we play? Why is racism on the list? We're playing like a Glitter Hearts fairy game. Why is racism on the list? Please tell me. Stuff like that, like the tone of it.
Welcome to Infinite Nikki, and we're discussing Class Evolution. Which I feel like technically is a plot point in the Nikki series anyway. Oh my god.
Yeah, oh my god. Like, we're like reflecting on life, but it's like stuff like that. Like if I into the tone is like happy comedy, and I read the consent list and it says sexual assault, racism, it's transphobic, and I'm like, whoa, why is this should just be red light all the way? Like save time, save space. We should just know.
And
It's
that's
like
another thing because there are stories where it's like, hey y'all, we are telling a very particular kind of story. Like let's think of this actually got brought up, I think in a session 0 I was like in a couple hours ago, but like Bluebeard's Bride, for example, right? Bluebeard's Bride is a very like particular type of story. First of all, it's not something that you just get a bunch of random people to play. You know what I mean? But it's one of those things where it's like in that case I could see like, hey, up front, this is the type of story that we are telling. Like, so if you are not interested, I understand, that's cool. And then the safety sheet is kind of like, let's further define what things like we are comfortable and safe with including and what things we are not comfortable and safe including, right? And but even then, like we would have to get into the specifics. So like in that case, racism wouldn't be enough, right? We would need like very specific like line items that relate to the topic at hand. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I think like I don't see a lot on consent forums is like discrimination. I don't see that a lot on there. And that is a heavy topic that will pop up. It does not have to be about skin tone. So like in our Hex Heist game, we're going to be discriminated for having magic. We just happen to be black, but we're
right.
We happen to be black, but that's not what we're getting discriminated on. It's because we have magic. But that could be a heavy topic or someone that getting isolated and being separated from a group, hiding who you are and stuff. That should be discussed in a session 0 because that could hit someone like me, like all of us. And so like they can hit all of us like that. And like, but I don't see that on consent forums at all. And I just never realized until like more and more like today when we had that conversation. It's like, yeah, discrimination on there, but people probably group it up with racism. Like they probably group it up with like racism and discrimination and prejudice, and they make it such a broad that it needs to be, if they're gonna go break it down, make it its own category. Like we have our mental health category, we have all that category, real world issues category. I guess racism has to be a category now too, and break it down and see what topics that could be brought up.
And I like that because it could be like the overarching theme is discrimination, and then it's like racism, homophobia, transphobia, but also like, having different powers. You know what I mean? Having like a certain look, like having like physical attributes that make you different outside of the ones above, having like, you know what I mean? Because I feel like, there are gonna be like if it's handled correctly, right? Because here's the thing, racism is there's something about your physical attribute that is going to be discriminated against in some way, shape, or form, right? There are cases, I do not want racism in my game, but there are cases in which a physical attribute like a tattoo, you know what I mean, I would have fun playing around with as long as we were careful. You know what I mean? So,
Like I
yeah.
can even think back to, especially for like Bree and DK, who have been in Roll for Luck, was the last arc we had my character dealing with the concept of her grandmother not technically being racist in regards to who she is, but it's a very weird towing the line of a weird eugenics thing of keeping the family bloodline pure. But that type of discrimination it is the same, it's similar to racism, but also very vastly different, especially when it's coming from folks who usually are marginalized in a specific way. So because that is not usually listed in safety tools, that is a bigger thing that ends up having to be discussed of like, okay, how much do we lean into this? How much do we tone it down? How much do we keep it vague? And with that whole thing in general, it was already weird because family shenanigans in my life, so we couldn't kill grandma at that time, but maybe we can kill grandma soon, eventually, maybe. But
If we ever get back home.
whenever we get back home. But it's just, there are building blocks, and from those building blocks there are jumping off points that people need to take into consideration. Like with this, like with slavery thing, I feel like that is something that people need to take into consideration when it comes to mind flayers, because sometimes people love mind flayers, they love that tentacle, but also they like to enslave people. I already hate them, so it's good that I want to kill them just outright. But if you're going to include them, just know that slavery is probably going to be mentioned a little bit.
And you know what? That's probably why racism has stayed on consent sheets for so long. Because I think when people put racism on the consent sheet, they're basically like I think that there is this unconscious assumption that we don't mean racist against like in world like real world racism. We mean like discrimination based on a physical attribute. But in my brain, I'm like, oh, racism. Like somebody calling me a slur to my face. You know what I mean? So I think that's why it's still on there. And I right now on this what time is it? 9:23 p.m. Eastern on February 5th, 2025, whatever dates are weird. I demand everybody change this. That is my decree. Add a new section, add discrimination, put all the discrimination things in there, but then also put specifics. Be more specific. Okay? It's okay if the consent sheet is longer. People will deal with it. All right? That is my decree. You've heard it here. Case adjourned.
It is law.
It works.
It is law.
It does.
Oh, DK, no. We're so
me too.
close.
No, am I gone again?
Okay, you're back.
You're back.
Yeah. I don't know what's happened. Hi. Hello. As a DM who is also Black, our panelists are 100% correct. It takes extra time, yes, but if you are inviting players of colors into your game, I would hope that you would be prepared to take that extra time, and people will sit for it. going through line item by line item by line item by line item, as specific as you have to get. And we've done it. I've done it in games here on Girls Run These Worlds, where we've had to get kind of nitty gritty about what the descriptions of things might be and where the line exactly is. Take the time to do it. There's really no excuse not to, if you want to be real. That's just it. We are just about out of time, but I want to make sure that I got everybody's thoughts on this. Did anybody have anything else that they wanted to add on this subject or about sort of our discussion as a whole? If not, that's cool too. You're not in school.
Hey, Black people. That's really it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Black History Month, so if you want to
Reparations, baby.
I don't know, give us like money or something. I don't know. Like
You too can donate $1 a day to us to help us live out our dreams and encouragements in this month and other months, because you don't have to celebrate just this month.
Get our PayPal, Venmo, Cash Apps, like just
Coffee.
Beyonce announced a tour. Those tickets are they're not cheap.
I'm gonna see Stray Kids in June. I need help, so help me.
Help me see culture.
Help me.
Well, okay.
help me.
Can't finish it because we're on Twitch. But
Yeah, but
you
I can
guys-
see his little face in my head.
Yeah. But if you're white, don't laugh too hard. The side eye for you.
I can't think of a better note to end things on. So that has been us. Please give a huge round of applause for our panelists who have been very candid and very earnest and shared a whole lot with us. And I'm very grateful that everyone was willing to sit down, especially those of us who are here late. In the meantime, don't miss the premiere of Hex Heist this Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You've heard it mentioned a couple of times here. It is a modern day witchy story starring an all-black cast, including our panelists here, Bree and Taylor. And for more above the table insights into Black talent in the TTRPG space, come back on the 19th, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, to hear about more of the creator side of things in the TTRPG industry. And again on the 26th, again, 8 p.m. Eastern, for a freeform roundtable discussion. I'll be back, and a couple of members of Girls Run These Worlds and Batty Bards will be here, being moderated by Alex of Batty Bards. It's going to be very cool. So hopefully we will see you there. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed yourselves. I hope our panelists enjoyed themselves. And some people have to get to bed, so I think we're gonna go. I think that's gonna be it for us. We're asleep. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.